I went to the Monet in Venice exhibit at the De Young Legion of Honor Fine Arts Museum in San Francisco. Oh, okay. I'm out of breath already. Growing up, I never really cared about art. Whenever my family would take me to an art museum, I would just open my DS and play Pokemon. Look, I got a Sudowoodo. One day, my mom and sister asked if I would like to go to the exhibit with them. I've been teaching myself how to draw, and most of the time I'd see art solely through Pinterest and Instagram. So I thought it would be a nice change of pace to actually go touch some grass and see some paintings in front of me. I didn't have any expectations, nor did I have any prior knowledge of any artists going into this for the most part, but apparently this was the first major exhibition in over a century. It was dedicated to Monet's Venetian cityscapes, making it the first time these works had been shown together since their 1912 Paris debut. It was already breathtaking, as his paintings just left me in awe. The fine ripples of brushstrokes and the way he portrayed water was truly amazing. Not to mention his color choices that made me feel so comfortable and at ease. The way Monet portrays his love for water is truly amazing, as he captured the scene so vividly, where it felt like I was actually there. Even though he isn't depicting every single detail, this introduced how different Monet was. He wasn't interested in the details, but more in exploring something entirely different. Monet's color choices were mainly green, blue, and purple, and the word that describes his art is envelope. It doesn't translate directly, but the sense of envelopment is what he's trying to capture. The light, the atmosphere, the air between the artist and its subject is something that he is so increasingly fascinated with as he's trying to render them in his paintings. For the next area, it was a section dedicated to the predecessors in Venice. As you may know, Venice is a truly beautiful place, and one artist that was able to capture its essence was Giovanni Antonio Canal, also known as Canaletto. I'm not sure if I pronounced that properly. He was the most significant practitioner, and he captured iconic areas like the Palazzo Ducale and the Santa Maria della Salute Church. But why am I talking about this? By the time Monet visited Venice in 1908, Venice had been painted numerous times by numerous artists. Everyone already knew what Venice looked like at this point. So why should Monet go? Look at Canaletto's. It was quite daunting to think about the legacy that he and other artists had already set. Venice was already done. There were countless artists who established their place alongside Canaletto, like Joseph Mylord William Turner, as Turner's works had this atmosphere and light that handled so well with his brushstrokes, and you can see the impression Turner left on Monet in his future works as well. But Monet wasn't alone. Monet had friends and fellow artists that also challenged this old tradition of Venice with their unexpected perspectives like James McNeill Whistler and John Singer Sargent. Monet would actually go on and purchase multiple works from his fellow artists and friends, and I think that was really beautiful because even though he felt this daunting and intimidating journey, he was inspired and encouraged by other artists alongside him. Monet only went to Venice though because of his wife Alice. At the time, Monet was actually working on the water lilies, which many of you may know, but he had been going through his artistic frustrations and self-doubt. Alice had suggested a break in Venice where they would only stay there for 2 months. One of the first paintings Monet made at Venice was the Grand Canal. What was interesting about Monet during this time at Venice was that he would paint the same subjects at the same time every day, keeping a consistent light and atmosphere. He only stayed at a location for about 2 hours and then leave to work on another location for his stay. I thought it was really interesting because people mentioned that it made his paintings really seem to stand still in the timeless city of Venice. His life was perfectly regulated, as from 8 a.m. he would go on his first motif, then the next, and some of those main attractions were the San Giorgio Maggiore and Palazzo Ducale. Monet chose this building as one of the subjects he'd visit and paint daily. It was commercially attractive and popular in Venice, but he still painted it, as he wanted to try to give it a new way of interpreting the Palazzo Ducale. He wasn't interested in creating a realistic view of the scene, as he chose to omit people. Critics often mention how his works had this almost mirage-like appearance, with the Ducale itself looking like it floats above the glimmering and rippling surfaces of the water and giving a hazy atmosphere. I mentioned that Monet had been going through self-doubt and frustration, both in his head and from external sources. There was little confidence in the water lilies project that Monet was pouring his heart and soul into before going to Venice. Venice had provided Monet this creative renewal where he found the strength to return back to his abandoned water lilies project and challenge himself again. But unfortunately, in 1911, his wife Alice had passed away due to leukemia. You can tell in some of the Palazzo paintings that there were these hints of melancholy and senses of isolation and abandonment. Monet did not complete his paintings in Venice and actually brought them back and reworked all 37 canvases, as well as the water lilies. When Monet had returned to Venice, for 17 years he pushed himself and devoted himself to be even more ambitious and larger scale with his water lilies. These were truly beautiful and immersive, as the light and atmosphere really embodied envelope. I didn't mean for this to be an essay, but it was my first ever exhibit and I truly enjoyed it. The way the exhibit was structured, as it gave a glimpse of who Monet was and why he went to Venice and what Venice was about, as well as the struggles that he faced. The things that resonated with me was the fact that despite Monet's external and internal struggles, he was able to continue and challenge himself because of the people around him that supported and inspired him. I'm not sure if I did the Monet in Venice exhibit justice, but I just wanted to share how the experience was for me, and I thought of people that might not be able to have the privilege to go to this exhibit because of other limitations. But if you made it to the end of this video, I just want to say thank you so much for clicking and watching this, and if you have any thoughts or comments, I would love to hear them. Have a good day. Bye bye.